Sharing is caring, a proposal for the development of shared, semi-autonomous mobile FabLabs to overcome obstacles in STEAM education. A paper written by Professor Thorsten Lonka and Professor Katharina Richter at Zayed University in the United Arab Emirates. The context of the research. The research originates from previous studies that were addressing challenges in STEAM education, respectively a lack of knowledges in the sciences as well as in mathematics, but also in technology usage and creative skills. We have encountered these deficits indeed in university education, but we are also confident that the source of the problem lies in primary as well as in secondary school education. So we are proposing a methodology based on the development of novel digital fabrication laboratories that intend to assist schools to overcome the obstacles associated with STEAM education, mainly due to a lack of technological resources, knowledge, facilities, but also due to inappropriate curricular methods. Before we are addressing the challenges of STEAM education, K12 as well as university, we would like to say a word about the current influence of the COVID-19 pandemic onto K12 education, because we feel it has shed a new light onto pedagogical research, and our work is indeed not exempt from the fact that the response of many schools around the world to what the challenges of online learning has often been rather dilettantish. We've seen many schools that desperately tried to follow the given curriculum, adopting frontal teaching methods and transferring them unchanged into the digital realm. We've seen teachers that prepared online content for self-learning without really noticing that they entirely disregarded their important role as a mediator in the classroom, a person that a student connects to not only as a transmitter of knowledge, but indeed also on a personal basis, as a tutor, as a mentor, or as a role model. We've seen approaches where schools obviously forgot about the obligation to teach. Instead, they changed their role into something where teachers solely handed out assignments to check upon knowledge the school has never conveyed to the students. We've seen parents that have been forced to take over the role of teachers, which led them into situations where their obligations as moms and dads conflicted with the new responsibilities they've actually never asked for and never been prepared for. We have seen that schools partially came to a standstill regarding their approach to deliver quality education through new means of online teaching. A deep misunderstanding amongst the teachers what online education must entail is evident. We have experienced that teachers had a very limited understanding for the actual situation of the students at home. Teaching happened and still often happens entirely uncoupled from the stressful situation the students were facing. The students were and still are taught often taught in a way that is demotivating and that makes them sad and spiritless. So the schools took away the joy out of the learning, and we believe that the impact of this is way far more reaching than trying to keep up with a mandated curriculum. In summary, it might be said that online education around the world has been a disaster for many, but it has also been an eye-opener for those that were under the mistaken impression that education is in good shape. Those are the ones that are worried now. They are worried about the time after the virus, where students go back to school and face the same problems that are so obvious. A lack of knowledge in the sciences and mathematics, but also in technology usage and creative skills, manifest the challenges in STEAM education that we encounter in university education today. However, we are certain that the source of the problem lies in primary and secondary school education, especially with the experience made in the past few months when many schools around the world transferred the classrooms into the digital realm. A lot more aspects became apparent that influenced the lack of knowledge in the aforementioned areas. To overcome these obstacles associated with STEAM, the following need to be addressed. That is certainly a lack of appropriate curricular methods, a lack of awareness for global trends, lack of facilities, technological resources, but also a lack of knowledge on the teacher side. And as a response to the experiences made in the recent past, aspects that were previously taken for granted also need to be reconsidered. It appears as if K12 education suffers from underqualified teachers, dated curricula, and more than ever, a lack of passion, excitement, and curiosity on both sides, teachers as well as students. Many schools around the world follow predefined curricula that appear to be set in stone, and it is almost sarcastic, but even a pandemic cannot touch the omnipresence of a dated idea that a student must learn a certain topic at a certain time, neither sooner nor later, no matter what the actual situation is. It is even worse that occurrences in the real world or things that happen in the classroom often have no effect on what is being taught. Again, simply because teachers feel obliged to teach what they have been told. The pressure that is on the teacher often derives from the pressure external parties put on the school. A school that adjusts teaching to the needs of the students is very hard to find. And it's also a paradox, but teachers are often unqualified. Those that are responsible to shape a new generation of learners, thinkers, makers, and leaders suffer from an education that is dated, as most of the curriculum is. And even though schools have gone through many reforms in the past, the general understanding of what is important as opposed to what is not hasn't changed. This is even more astonishing as global trends occurring in the professional world are neglected. Competencies that suit job profiles and requirements of 21st century industries are hardly being addressed in K12 education. Scenarios of how the curriculum must adapt to these challenges are not implemented. It goes without saying that the facilities of today's schools are oriented toward the requirements of the past and dated curricula. 50 years ago, when the world was facing the recovery and first upturn after World War II, the schools were bursting with facilities such as joineries and metal workshops to meet the demands of the industrialized world. Nowadays, there are no answers as to how the carpentries of the 21st century school must look like. Schools built in recent years are lacking all kinds of facilities, including workshops that would at least give students a sense for craftsmanship. So with no workshops being built anymore, the amount of technological resources available is also limited. Most schools have resources such as computers, chemical or biological samples, which are all stored in dedicated spaces, and that's the crux with this kind of thinking. In today's world, the borderlines between the disciplines diminish. The employee of today and tomorrow has a multitude of transdisciplinary skills that cannot be assigned to a single discipline only. Concepts such as FabLabs or makerspaces that are already common in many public spaces, but which do not explicitly belong to any of the well-known disciplines, do not have a home in today's school. And it appears as if teachers are detached from the real world. The general education they went through does not leave a lot of leeway for the accumulation of expert knowledge that is necessary to address the challenges of a globally networked work infrastructure. FabLabs or makerspaces would require a different teacher, one that feels responsible. Today, no one feels responsible. It is neither the arts teacher, nor the physicist, nor the chemist that would occupy such a space. But unfortunately, these are the kind of teachers our schools employ. There's no all-rounder, no person that didn't make it in school, left university, but became a successful businessman anyways. There's no entrepreneur who failed multiple times but stood up again and again because he learned the lesson from the mistakes he made. Our schools are an assortment of individuals that are oriented toward the past, not the future. So in summary, the challenges that successful STEAM education faces are curricula that are not designed to cater knowledge transfer in these respective areas, schools that cannot provide the necessary infrastructure, and teachers that are not qualified to teach in these domains. We must address these problem domains by changing the way knowledge is transferred, blended and extracurricular instead of frontal instruction, in a non-standard classroom environment with an emphasis on making and experimentation. We suggest to give many schools access to mobile high-tech manufacturing devices situated in mobile buildings that come at zero investment costs for the schools and at low investment costs for the ministries with a maximum degree of capacity utilization. And we also suggest integrated pedagogical approaches that are supported by new algorithms for autonomous mobile learning. The Zayed University Research Center for Digital Fabrication is a transdisciplinary research space within which we address the educational challenges and questions that arise from the use of innovative fabrication technologies representing all aspects of STEAM education. As a research center that caters the needs of a variety of academic disciplines, we also began to open our labs to students from secondary schools. The results we gained from workshops with 12 to 14 years old students matched the results of the university students regarding the pedagogical impact these techniques have. Students were engaged, motivated, and excited. They understood that the objective of the one-day workshops was to produce an object for which they had to understand how to digitally fabricate the artifact and assemble it manually. A good combination of different techniques had to be tested and applied. Mathematical formulae had been used for a reason, not as a meaningless assignment on paper. Co-working skills had to be developed and honed. Leadership skills evolved naturally from the students building an understanding that a group of a dozen students needs guidance. For such like scenarios to happen in schools, a range of theses have been developed by the authors that describe the potential challenges university education must deal with. The situation in most K12 schools is similar, but it can be extended with the following theses. These theses built the framework for the constitution of mobile FabLabs. They derived from more than half a decade of experience with the development of in situ labs in universities. They inform the devices and tools we will integrate into the various systems, the mobile architecture, fabrication devices, educational technology, and also the support systems. So we know that digital fabrication is an expensive undertaking, and we also know that only a few schools can afford this investment. But often we see that the devices are not used at their maximum capacity. So we think that a shared infrastructure is a very valuable alternative to that. And if a shared infrastructure that is used to its full capacity is an asset with a very high return of investment, thus sharing is a valuable alternative to an expensive but underused investment. And indeed, this often applies specifically to university education and certainly a little less to K12 education. But what's important is that all kinds of digital fabrication requires expert knowledge that teachers barely have and they can barely provide. Often the curriculum doesn't even allow for these methods to be implemented because there are simply no courses where you can teach digital fabrication. Therefore, teachers must be supported with appropriate means through which knowledge transfer can be accomplished, and it is a necessity to develop alternative methods of instruction. But the good thing is we know that students are attracted by technology. They have a natural curiosity for the unknown. So it is to be expected that a classroom environment that challenges the existing and is packed with technology will make the students interested to explore. We believe that mobile labs are real alternatives to in situ labs that are very often not used to capacity. We think that a shared infrastructure guarantees a very fast return of investment, and we need autonomous learning through algorithms that support experiment. And we also need to develop tasks students are interested in, because otherwise they're losing interest. We suggest an architecture that consists of a structure that unfolds and turns into a completely autonomous self-sustained classroom. It comprises of lightweight fabrication devices that can be pulled from the container, used in the temporary environment, and operated through simple means. The engineering of the device infrastructure with its supply systems will allow for easy and safe operation. Pedagogy will allow students to learn, create, and successfully develop the anticipated skills and abilities in STEAM. Our methodology can be described as supplemental, if not disruptive, to what regular course offers. Students are taken out of their regular classroom environment, being confronted with an almost autonomous setting that requires them to actively engage to produce results. Technological systems aid them in the process, making use of their native language, amongst others, producing results that can be touched and taken home. The students' learning progress is manifested in these outcomes. No grade given for any such like task is proof of the achievement, but the artifact produced by the student itself. Thank you very much for your attention.